Imagine stepping into a seemingly ordinary apartment only to find rows of life-size dolls, each meticulously dressed and posed, but they're not dolls. Behind each glassy, hollow eye is a haunting secret, a chilling story of resurrection, loss, and obsession. Today we delve into the unsettling case of Anatoly Moskvin, the Russian historian who wasn't just fascinated by history, but by the dead themselves. Known to some as a brilliant academic, and to others as the man who brought corpses home, Moskvin's story is as bizarre as it is horrifying. Anatoly Yurievich Moskvin was born on September 1, 1966, in Gorky, Soviet Russia, a city now known as Nizhny Novgorod. From a young age, Moskvin was an odd and solitary child, often described as a highly intelligent boy who had a knack for languages. Yet, behind his academic brilliance lay a fascination with death that took root in his early teenage years. One day, 13-year-old Moskvin was walking home from school and stumbled upon a funeral procession for an 11-year-old girl named Natasha Petrova. What happened next would haunt him for the rest of his life. Moskvin recalled his horror as men forced him to kiss Natasha's lifeless face, holding his head down against her cold, waxy skin. He later wrote, "I kissed her once, then again, then again." But the horror didn't end there. In a final bizarre twist, Natasha's grieving mother placed a wedding ring on his finger and another on Natasha's, binding them together in a macabre marriage. From that day on, something inside Moskvin changed. His thoughts turned increasingly to the dead, and a strange obsession took hold of him. This young boy, forced into a marriage with a corpse, would grow up to become a man whose life was dominated by this haunting memory. Despite this traumatic experience, Moskvin excelled academically, eventually graduating with a degree in philology from Moscow State University. He became known in Russian academic circles for his vast knowledge, especially in Celtic culture and folklore, but he was also deeply interested in death and burial rituals, spending countless hours studying the occult. Although he was widely regarded as a brilliant academic, Moskvin led an extremely secluded life. He never married, never dated, and seemed almost completely detached from human relationships. Instead, he preferred to live with his parents in their Nizhny Novgorod apartment. Moskvin abstained from drinking and smoking, and as far as anyone could tell, he was a lifelong virgin. He spent his days cataloguing the dead, visiting cemeteries, and immersing himself in research. For years, Moskvin traveled on foot, visiting over 750 cemeteries, often spending the night among the graves. His reputation as a necropolist grew, yet no one suspected the full extent of his morbid interests. It wasn't until his arrest in 2011, following a series of grave desecrations, that the world learned of the horrors he had been hiding in plain sight. The police initially searched Anatoly Moskvin's apartment as part of an investigation into a series of grave desecrations in the Nizhny Novgorod region. Over several years, local cemeteries had reported numerous cases of vandalism and exhumation, with headstones disturbed, graves defaced, and in some cases entire bodies missing. The pattern became particularly concerning to authorities who suspected that the acts were linked to an individual or group with specific motives. In November 2011, investigators from the Center for Combating Extremism were assigned to track down the source of these repeated disturbances. During their inquiries, the police uncovered evidence that led them to Anatoly Moskvin. They suspected Moskvin might be involved due to his known interest in local cemeteries and grave rituals, which made him a potential suspect. Inside his apartment, police found the mummified bodies of 26 girls, ranging from ages 3 to 29. Each one was dressed in children's clothing, posed in chairs, on shelves, and even at the dining table. Moskvin had carefully preserved their remains, drying them with salt and baking soda, wrapping their limbs with cloth, and covering their faces with wax. To him, these weren't merely corpses, they were his children, waiting to be reborn. This shocking discovery revealed the extent of Moskvin's actions and provided answers to the grave-robbing mystery that had plagued Nizhny Novgorod cemeteries for years. So what drove Moskvin to bring these bodies home? Moskvin claimed he felt a deep, almost spiritual connection to the children he exhumed. He believed that he could bring them back to life using a mix of science and magic, and that they called out to him, longing for the comfort of a family. He explained that he would search for the obituaries of recently deceased children and visit their graves, sleeping on them to connect with their spirits. When he could no longer physically endure this ritual, he began to take the bodies home, mummifying them so they could be near him. He claimed that his only goal was to create a safe and happy environment for these spirits, to give them a home and a sense of belonging. Moskvin's parents, who shared the apartment, believed his creations were nothing more than large dolls. But the townspeople were horrified when they learned of his gruesome secret. After his arrest, Moskvin was charged with the desecration of graves, a crime that could have put him behind bars for up to 5 years. However, after a psychiatric evaluation diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, he was deemed unfit for trial and committed to a psychiatric hospital where he remains to this day. Over the years, his treatment has been extended multiple times as evaluations have consistently concluded that he remains a danger to society. Though there was a brief attempt to release him to outpatient care in 2018, further assessments reversed that decision, and he continues to be held under court-ordered psychiatric care. The case of Anatoly Moskvin is one of the most disturbing in modern criminal history. It's a story of genius twisted by delusion, of a man who sought to rescue the dead and ended up haunting the living. Moskvin's story leaves us with a haunting image, a brilliant but deeply disturbed man, lost in a world of his own creation, where corpses became his companions and the dead were forever bound to him in a terrifying embrace. So what drives a man to live with the dead? Was Anatoly Moskvin a victim of his own genius, or a disturbed soul haunted by a lifetime of unfulfilled desires? Perhaps we'll never truly understand the mind that saw beauty in corpses. But one thing is certain: some histories are better left buried.